Hi and welcome to Back to the Tactics board. In today's video, we're looking at the 4-4-2 formation used in 11-a-side. We'll look at the strengths of this formation and also some of the challenges you may face when using it. Here we have the players then in the 4-4-2 formation. It's such an iconic formation really, but also sometimes can seem like a cliche as well, like an obvious formation. I think it was very popular for a time, and that popularity lingered longest perhaps in the UK, and that sometimes led to ridicule because it became much more fashionable to have an extra player in the midfield, not to have two up front, almost like it was like a luxury, and you couldn't retain possession as well with 2 against 3, and so a lot of times you'd see UK based teams struggling to keep hold of the ball, and a lot of coaches moved away from it. But now, you know, you're seeing it being used again by some teams and used very effectively because you've got 2 up front and a lot of defenders are not used to that. So interesting formation. Let's start by looking at some of the strengths of this formation then. Well, first of all, you've got your back 4. You've got that balance of having 4 players across the width of the pitch, covering left, right and centre, and you've got the unit of the 2 centre-backs working together, but then also the full-back, the right full-back with the right centre-back, the left-back with the left centre-back. So that can be quite a clear thing for the players to understand. And then as a 4 as well, just 4 players across the width of the pitch closes a lot of gaps. They can be responsible for their vertical quarter of the pitch, and that can make it quite easy for a young player especially to understand what area of the pitch they're responsible for. You've also got 4 in the midfield as well, so again you've got the width, the coverage of the width of the pitch, and you add those 2 together, those 2 banks of 4 as you often hear them called, and all of a sudden you've got quite good defensive compactness. 2 banks of 4 working up and down when you haven't got possession of the football can shut down a lot of spaces for an opponent. In certain formations, say for example a 4-3-3, where do you want the players to be? Do you want them in line with each other? Are they at different depths, you know, from the winger to the attacking mid to the defensive mid? Whereas in this, sometimes you just tend to see it as being a flat 4 that can work across the pitch. I think there's a certain aspect to this formation that can be easy to understand, and that, you know, players could get together and play a game of football without any preparation. If you said I want you in 2 banks of 4, they'd roughly understand what you meant. One of the beauties of this formation is how you have the pairs that can work together. So like I've mentioned already, your full back and your side centre back. You also have the 2 centre backs working together, your 2 central midfielders, your 2 centre forwards, and how those in pairs can be great partnerships. But you have another interesting partnership can be between the full back and the side midfielder, the wide midfielder. Because the wide midfielder is not as high as they'd be if they were an out and out winger, perhaps in a 4-3-3, they're closer together. So defensively, the wide midfielder can support the fullback, and offensively, the fullback can support the wide midfielder. A good example of this was Gary Neville working with David Beckham. Beckham wouldn't want to go all the way to the byline. A lot of times he was looking to cross from this kind of area. Gary Neville doing overlaps there would give space for Beckham to get his cross in. A good system then for kind of the partnerships, and I really particularly like the full-back and wide midfielder partnership. Another aspect of this formation that can be seen as a strength is how it can be great for counter-attacking. Let's look at one example first of all. Your wide midfielders, because they're starting from a deeper position and they have their defensive duties where they'll drop into that bank of 4, when the ball is won back, it can be a case of them being in a deep position and being able to burst out from there into the space, and they can be facing the way they want to play. You know, if the ball's won back in this kind of area, they can be bursting forward from here, whereas the alternative can be they could be higher at the pitch in say a 4-3-3, maybe not coming all the way back in, but then when the ball's won back, it's played to them, they've got the back to the way they want to be going. Another reason it can be good for counter-attacking is you've got 2 up front. So even though these players may have some defensive duties to come back in and work hard, when you win it back, they're probably higher up the pitch than 2 players would be in other systems. So you've got 2 players, as soon as you win it back, and you can be looking at exploiting the spaces behind an opponent. And you see someone like Vardy, for example, at Leicester in their 4-4-2, running in behind straight away and causing all sorts of problems for an opponent in transition. Whilst it's not a formation for necessarily maintaining possession for long periods of time, it really is geared to attacking quickly, getting hold of the ball, getting forward. It can also lead to quite a direct style of play if that's what you want as well. You could go direct to the forwards, or it can be this idea of your wide midfielders bursting forward with the ball and then releasing the striker or linking up with the striker. As well as the counter-attacking benefits of having two up front, you also have the pressing benefits as well. These players can, early in transition, possession may have been lost, they can get after the ball together, or they can work a side each without leaving, massive spaces behind them. You haven't got that issue of when a midfielder does a press and if it goes wrong, a big space is left in the midfield. Well, you've got that security of the bank of four behind you, so your forwards can really get after the ball aggressively. All in all, one of the big strengths of this system is its simplicity and people's ability to kind of understand those partnerships through the team and how they can be important. If you're trying to get a young team to understand, the basics of being compact in a unit, you've got those two banks of four. And a lot of what they'll do will be similar in terms of like shifting across the pitch together, moving up the pitch together and dropping together. And you've got this idea for attacking play, how you've got these players in advanced positions even when you're defending, so you can immediately put the opposition on the back foot. As much as I like possession-based football, watching the United side when you had Keane and Scholes in there, Giggs on one side, Beckham on the other, before that Kanchelskis, it would drive up from deep areas on the ball, so exciting on the wings, getting balls into box, two strikers in there to get on the end of it. Lots of excitement in this formation. It can be a bit of a rock and roll formation. Let's look at some of the potential issues you might face then in this formation as well. I'd say the most common issue in this formation is when you're getting outnumbered in the middle area. There, a lot of sides now want three players in midfield, and if you over two, unless they're very, very good at covering that area and using their movements cleverly, you can be outnumbered. And what that leads to is the opponent having a lot more of the ball, shutting down your attempts to build attacks, and ultimately one movement away, one bit of a lack of discipline, huge spaces for an opponent to capitalise on. So that's a problem without the ball, and also it can be with it as well, because if both your central midfielders can't get on the ball because the pressure they're under from an opposition three, you might really struggle to build possession. You might end up more often than not just going down the sides of the pitch and playing direct, which might be your thing. But if you wanted to get the ball in through midfield and get through balls played from here, or getting your 10 on the ball, that can be a bit of an issue in this formation. I mentioned the strengths of having your wide midfielders coming from deep for counter-attacking. Can also be an issue as well that, if they haven't got the stamina to get back and support the full-back in these areas, and then equally get up the pitch and be a wide option for the side as well. So they're going to have to do a lot of work up and down the pitch, a lot of defensive, a lot of offensive work. If they don't do that, and you're not getting the width offered by your strikers and your centre forwards, then this can be an issue in this formation, getting people in these areas to cause a problem for opponents. If the players aren't on the same page, they don't understanding that if the 10's dropping in for the ball, is your number 9 looking to exploit the spaces behind, break lines of the opposition defence? If they're both dropping in, where's the movement coming in behind? So that could be a bit of an issue, players understanding. And I'd compare that in the midfield position to your England side when they had Lampard and Gerrard playing in there. Both excellent players for their clubs, but when you put them together in a 4-4-2, both wanted to do their box-to-box roles still, which meant if both left out, got forward, you end up with this big space. If one just stays back, are you getting the best of that player? So you do have to have kind of clear roles and responsibilities in this formation. Are you expecting one to do most of the defensive work, your Keane and Scholes, and one to get further forward? Or is it literally a case of whichever player makes that movement first? This player makes a big movement, does this player now stay in and protect this middle area? Otherwise, you're clearing out and leaving a big space for an opponent to attack into. This can be, for the forwards as well, a defensive thing as well. Are you expecting both of these players to work back? Are you expecting one to press this side, the other to tuck in here against maybe the opposition defensive midfielder? If the ball goes the other way, is it this striker? As this player now dropping into this area? What responsibilities do they have defensively, the two forwards? Without movement from either a midfielder or a forward into this kind of space here, or as the team move up the pitch with the ball, you kind of typical zone 14 in the whole area. If it's not your midfielder moving in there and it's not one of your forwards, you might actually get too big a gap between your midfield and your forward line, and they struggle to link up the play. If you look at the formation as it is on this page here, you've got a lot of straight lines, both horizontally and vertically, a lot of potential square passes, a lack of diamond shapes and triangle shapes, which I've mentioned before in other formation videos, create for good passing angles and angles of support. So I'd say a big part of this formation being either a strength or an area that could be a concern is movement. Without that movement, it can look quite rigid and lack creativity. it can become really predictable for an opponent to smother this formation. So that's the 4-4-2 formation then. Almost a cliched formation in the UK, and I would say to such an extent that coaches would often turn their noses up at it because it was almost not enough of a challenge to coach that, because we thought it was too simple. Well, everyone knows that formation. Why would I want to do that? I want to do something more creative. But I think it has come back into fashion a little because people have seen that with the right movements from those start positions, it can be a great formation to use. And there's a lot of defences now that are not used to playing against two strikers up front because they've got so used to there being one centre forward and then three in midfield. Look at Leicester with the success they've had. And as much as I enjoy possession-based football, you know, some teams do that so slowly that you can say it's not quite as exciting at times. So yeah, 4-4-2, it's still got its rock and roll image about it, I think, and there's still plenty to coach in there for coaches. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you next time.